Okay. So it is with great pleasure that today I am introducing you to a fascinating young lady who's called Rachel Freeman. Now, this is the first time Rachel and I are meeting. Rachel's name was given to me by a very dear friend who is no longer living in Tasmania, I might say, who Alison Mosley, who is herself an extraordinary woman and an ex-Paralympian, and currently has moved back to Queensland to work with, I think, wheelies up there.
Yeah, she's busy.
Yeah, busy woman. Anyway, a shout out to Al Mosley, and thank you very much for giving me Rachel's name. But Rachel Freeman.
Yeah.
Yeah, hello. Rachel is a bit hard to tell from the video, but she's actually 38 weeks pregnant. So before we go any further, thank you very much. For those who've had children will understand being 38 weeks pregnant is quite a feat, and it's very tiring, and so not long to go now. So
no, hopefully not.
Yeah, very exciting. So some people may have heard of Rachel previously, or maybe even used your business. Is it called a business? Yeah. So House Sitting Tasmania is a little business that her and her husband Shaun set up.
Yeah, our little platform.
Yeah, a few years ago now, back in 2014. So, we'll get you to talk about that a little bit in a minute. Rachel also has previously worked for the Department of Education as a teacher's assistant, and she's also worked for TasDef, and she, just until she went on maternity leave, was working with Max Employment, helping with disability placement. Yeah. Rachel has, I guess the term is a hearing impairment, is that right?
Deaf, yeah. I've changed labels over the years. As you know, the identity of hearing impairment, deaf, is widely quite different. So I've become very confident in the fact that I label myself as deaf. Yep. I am profoundly deaf without my hearing aid, so for me that's a strong and something that should be celebrated, I think, because deaf people don't see themselves as disabled at all, which is a tricky form of, when I talk about disabilities and identifying, working with disabilities and all of that. Deaf people culturally are positive and love who they are, and then they don't really know, we don't really know anything else apart from being deaf, so we just see ourselves as just general members of society, which everyone with a disability, I feel, feels the same way.
So for those watching, perhaps just a little bit about yourself, maybe. I think you're Tasmanian.
Absolutely.
And maybe just a little bit about your journey, perhaps even around how long you've been deaf. And
I will. Okay, so I'm almost 30, so 30 years ago my mum was expecting me. So I was born deaf, but it wasn't known at the time, as in 1987 they weren't doing hearing tests on babies.
Right.
So I was a late diagnosis, late meaning early intervention should be happening before 3 or 4 years old. I was 3, and of course being born to hearing parents, and I understand this in a major way in my work and what I've done with families and children, is that hearing parents will grieve and struggle with the diagnosis. It's very much like anything. You want your child to be happy, healthy, that's what every mother wants. And so I know that my parents struggled with that for a long time, and were quick to try and work with what they could do as parents. So very quickly I was fitted with a hearing aid, and that was a struggle for a young child to adapt to. So that went on, but eventually that was successful, but they immediately worked with some teachers who were part of the Claremont project. I don't know if you've ever heard. No. So this project came about to introduce bilingual education so that hearing and deaf children work in the same school together. Very, very successful in terms of where I am now. I don't believe that I'd be the person today without that access. So being able to learn English through Auslan Sign Language, majorly important, so that's where I am. So so once I was diagnosed, Mum and Dad went straight into learning sign language. My youngest brother, I can't remember how old he was, but a baby pretty much. He was signing before he could speak.
Wow.
So my parents could communicate with him long before they could even talk. So that was quite amazing, and off to school I went at 4, and so the interventions are really important, and having to learn sign language as a family, and the extended family went off to learn as well, which was really important and fantastic for all of us. So I was lucky enough to be given a choice. Now a lot of deaf children don't get a choice because Mum and Dad just want to say, okay, off to the speech therapist, we want our child to talk, we want them to be normal,
right,
whatever that is, and so I had both. I was given speech therapy and access to language, and at the end of the day that's the most important thing, because that's where my English flourished, I really feel. Then I met my husband 6 years ago, and within 2 months he was diagnosed with a brain tumour.
Right.
So we were both faced with, I met the love of my life, I was certain, and I have, and we were both faced with the fact that he could be 6 foot under within the month, so that was awful. I stuck by his side and we got through it. We had surgery, he got treatment, he's in remission luckily. Unfortunately there has been some other issues with his nerves and eyesight, not eyesight in the terms of vision, but the way the nerves and the muscles work within the nervous system. So lots of challenges. So we've really faced a lot together in terms of the beginning.
Yeah.
So that really changed our perspective on life, and being 24-year-olds, we were just like, you know what, we need to live it up. So we've travelled around the world, we've done lots of things that probably not a lot of other people have been able to do at a young age. So we've conquered a lot in 6 years, and probably more than anybody would have ever done or had done. We were given the idea by my best friend who's deaf. She's actually in Brisbane, so Alison I think is about to meet her, which is lovely. She was doing it, she had been doing it for about 6 months, and for us, we had a little house place in West Hobart. We couldn't imagine, just packing up and living a life on the road. As much as I dreamt about doing that, like with a caravan, it would be wonderful to be able to do that. But I think it just felt really far-fetched in our minds that we could really do this. And then I had a stack of bills coming in and some debt to pay off, and so that sort of started me thinking, look, I think we can do better than paying rent and doing all of this. And we were in a rut. We really were going to work, coming home, doing the same thing day in, day out. And I think for us, having done what we've done in 5 years, that 12 months is like, we need to do something really unique and different and really out there, and I guess challenge the status quo in life. So we just decided. It took me 3 days to convince Shaun, actually. I was the one that was pushing for the whole adventure. I think we can do this if we do this. And it literally was not a business idea at all. So then that one day in September we thought, that's it, we'll pack up and
go and look after someone's house for them.
Yeah, and it was literally overnight. I spoke about it with a few friends, and we were prepared for people to say, you're crazy. We were prepared for people to knock us back and say, this, you can't achieve this, it's not doable, how are you going to live out of your car? And we were pretty confident, but we managed to line up a few house sitting jobs, and that was actually through a few other websites. So there were national, international websites that do it. So so we took off, and then overnight a friend said to me, you should really put this out there in the Hobart community on it, make a Facebook page, and we were like, oh, I don't know if we want to go public like that. We were not that keen to publicise it that in that term, or really open up ourselves to people we didn't know. But we decided, okay, we're a little Hobart house sitting with a page that we created, and literally overnight we had 500 people like the page.
That's amazing.
The power of social media. We were baffled by just how popular it was and successful in the long term. But we had an inbox that was just bursting with people wanting us, and it was born. So off we went, and we haven't looked back since.
People commit to careers and they focus on it, and when they don't feel like it's necessarily what they want to do anymore, it can be incredibly hard and incredibly, they get stuck in that rut. But on the flip side of that, they don't really know what they want to do, and I think talking to them, it's not necessarily being in the rut that gets them so frustrated as much. It's actually just not knowing what to replace it with. But listening to you, you seem fairly open to just exploring and taking. I mean, I think people would be fascinated about how you find some sense of contentment in that, I guess, or whether you do actually feel that, or whether it does sort of frustrate you at times that you feel.
No, not at all. It's really weird. I think I have this ability to just quickly adapt, and I think that's a facet of my disability, if you like. I think that I don't see it as a barrier whatsoever, so I see no barriers in anything, and I feel that maybe that stemmed from my parents telling me as a child that you do what you want to do and be who you want to be, and I think that that's really a driven confidence in terms of anything that I do and what I apply myself to. I have high standards and self-motivation. I think that anything I do attempt, and this frustration actually happened long ago as a child, and I think breaking down those barriers have put me where I am now. I feel like I have a purpose because especially now there are a number of families and children who have in no way got access to what I had, or I talk about we as in my best friend and my group that went through school together. And I think strongly, and I'll use a few words, but I think that advocacy and having a voice is really important, because if you're disabled, or you have a disability or a health issue, which is largely what I work with in this number of people, have just finished work with people who I guess the society or the community and employers, businesses don't take seriously or won't. And that's something I've learned the last few years. I think that you really need to stand up for what you believe in and stand up for your needs and your rights as a confident person, and that's something I think is the purpose of somewhat developed from what I've done or what I've learned over the years.
You talked about long term, about CEO might be on your resume one at some stage in your future. The question I tend to ask people is around leadership, and in your experience so far, have you come across someone or an experience of good or bad leadership that you think is going to influence you when you
absolutely
step up one day?
Yeah, this is probably why I have a drive to be a leader of some, and it doesn't need to be a CEO or a manager or have a title, but I think being a role model and a leader is really important for people, not to talk myself up in that way, but I think that if you've got something special that people strive to have or want or need, especially children, I think, because role models are so important, because they may not have them in their parents. I know I'm not being negative, but there are a number of people out there that just lack direction and drive and role models in their lives. So that's definitely one of the things. And you know, I've come across a number of leaders, people who I think that really, it's not quite fair for what I've seen. And I have been bullied, and that's in my school life, in my working life, and I guess to overcome that with a disability. And I'm not trying to say that in terms of defining myself, because I don't define myself as disabled or living with a disability at all. Of course I have barriers, and there's lots of ways to get over them, and I think that's probably why that creates that feel of knowing that I can be a leader and feel that I have the qualities and the abilities to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe I might not be the best CEO or manager, that's okay, but at least I explored it. And I think that's been me the last 15 years in terms of my working and my study and my achievements and what I've done. It's just been, okay, I'll have a shot. I think being happy, and I really think it's quite simple, is being happy with what you already have or what you've done or who you are, or having enough